Hello everyone and welcome to EECS Discussion 6. We're continuing our talk about asset creation tools. This week we're going to talk about Sprite, which is a sprite editor and pixel art tool if you are going to be making, a game that might have pixel textures, like that's 3D, or if you're just making a 2D, more retro style pixel game. Sprite is a great program for doing that. You can generally do pixel art with, free editors like Paint.net or GIMP. But this one is specifically designed for pixel art, so I might suggest it. There is a free version of the software, and the only problem with it is that you can't save. That means that when you create stuff with it, you have to directly export it to its final, like, PNG file, and otherwise you have to keep it running while you're working, which, given the amount of features in it, I think might be worth checking out if you consider it good. As always, we don't want you spending money for materials in this class, so please do not buy the full version of this just for the class. But I will say it's that even just the trial version, which has all the features except for saving, and you just have to keep it running until you're done, definitely worth checking out and trying if you might be interested. So I have it running right here. Let me show you. I have a new project created. You can do that by doing File, New. I'm just going to create something that's 64 by 64 pixels, and I'm going to use just RGBA, which just means each pixel will have a color in it. If you're trying to do something with a consistent color scheme across your game, you might want to go with indexed, in which case you have a color palette, and then each when you color something in your sprite, it's using an index on the palette as if the palette were an array of colors instead of just the actual color itself. So you can quickly swap between color palettes on one sprite. I'll just stick with RGBA and I'll pick a transparent background. I'm going to hit OK. So this is the Sprite window. Let me make it a little bit larger. There are a couple main components. There's the toolbar on the side. There's the sprite editor. There's the small preview window where if you want to look at how it might look like smaller if you're zoomed all the way in, the preview window is good for that. So if I start drawing, you can see that it lets me preview from further away. Sometimes you can just keep it closed if you don't need it, and you can reopen it if you go to View and then go to Preview. Anyways, there's also down here, this is the layer and frame window. I don't remember what its official name is. We can go and see. The timeline, that's what they call it. But this is where you can, if you're making animated sprites, add more frames. And if you're making multiple layers in your sprite, you can do that here as well. So on the left here is the color selector. You can see there's a bunch of pre-filled colors here. But anytime you pick a color here and you see this red exclamation point, you can click on it and it'll add it to the color palette, and you can delete it if you don't want it. So that's the color picker. There are, I believe, let me switch this back to normal. There are a whole lot of different options. As you can see, there's the docs, the quick reference for Sprite, which is pretty useful if you want to just get started very quickly with it. But yeah, let me walk through just drawing a little bit in it and showing you what it looks like. So currently I have the pencil tool selected. The pencil tool has a bunch of different modes: simple ink, alpha compositing, copy alpha and color, lock alpha, and shading. I generally only use simple ink and shading, but these other ones do have their uses. If you go to drawing and then it will show you what these different ink types are. Alpha compositing will combine the colors that you have with other colors that are already there. So like let's say I color in with a red here, and then I pick this pink and I go to alpha compositing. Wait, hold on, I might have done that wrong. Merges the foreground color with the layer surface, depending on the alpha value. That's right. Okay, so now let me pick this and then set its transparency to this much. So now what it'll do is it'll merge the background color with the foreground color that I currently have, instead of if I just had simple ink, just completely replacing the color behind. There's copy alpha and color, and lock alpha. You can read about them here. And I'll show you the shading section in a little bit. But anyways, for now, just sticking with simple ink and colors, you can start to just go ahead and draw for a little bit. So why don't I I don't like that. I'm going to draw like a person. I'm going to give them a neck. Draw them like this. Maybe they have a shirt on. There you go. And I drew a nice little guy. Obviously this was pretty sloppy of my drawing, but if you want to be very precise, Sprite lets you zoom all the way in and be very precise with your pixel placements. So let's say I create a new one and I'm only making pixels that are 16 by 16. I can zoom all the way in and really go in. So, you know, and just click one at a time. I can increase the size of the pixel brush to be more, but in the case of smaller pixel art, you generally are going to be drawing one pixel at a time. And I can use, there's the paint bucket tool, which as you might imagine will fill in a space. We have the eyedropper tool, which will let you select a color that's on the canvas if you didn't have it saved in your palette. There's the eraser tool, which will let you erase things. So let me erase these, for example. There's the move tool, which lets you move something around. I want it to be centered, sort of, so I'll put it there. There's also like other things like a gradient tool, where why don't I pick what the foreground and background color are before doing this. So I'll make the foreground color, say well, let's pick this. What's the color we picked here? We have this one. Why don't I make a darker one of that? I'll add it to the palette as well. Then I'll make the background go down to, how about white? And then I'll go here, I'll go gradient tool, and I'll take gradient. And I have a nice little gradient background for my guy. We have the line tool where we can draw it'll draw straight lines, but obviously with pixel art, straight lines will look like this. There's curve tools. and you know, you can do circles and ellipses. I'll show you that in a second. You can do contours and polygons, and then this is the blur tool, which can blur things out, which can sometimes be fun when you're trying to make something look a little bit fuzzy, like if it might be used in the background or something like that of your game. So what else is there? Let me show you an example, some fun stuff of like animation and stuff. So let's pick the filled ellipse tool. I'll make this circle, and now I'll show you like shading to make it look like a sphere. So I'm going to add a bunch of colors to the palette. So I'll add that one. I'll make it a little bit brighter. I'll add that one. Make it a little bit brighter. Add that one. Make it a little bit brighter. Add that one. And then let's do one more that's like up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm on the pencil tool. Then I'm going to hit shading. I'm going to hit this. And I'm going to press and hold shift. And there you go. And you can see all of these colors are now here. And now when I have shading picked as my ink type, I can hold left click, and then when I draw, it's going to pick the next color based on what it sees already. So you can see that there's black here, so what's the next color? It's this one. So when I press and hold left click, it's going to draw that color on. And if I press and hold left click again, it's going to shade even further. So I'm going to make my brush size a little bit larger, actually. Maybe 6 pixels. And what's nice about the shading tool is that it fits inside whatever shape you have right now. So let's try and shade it to look like a sphere. So what I'll do is I'll fill it in completely with this. Oh, I missed. This, and then let me add an even lighter one in. So now I wanted to add an even lighter one. I'll add it in, and so now if you scroll out, it looks like a sphere more. I added some shading using the shading tool. That's fun. So now let me show you the animation stuff. I can go to frame and click new frame, or I can do Alt N. I think it'll probably be Option N on Mac. In my case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use just the square select tool, and then in my next frame I'm going to have it be like this, and then I'm going to hit Alt N and make a new frame, and in the next frame I'm going to have it be like this, a little bit smaller, and in the next frame I'll have it be just a little bit more smaller. And then what I'll do is I'll go back, and then each previous frame I'll right click and I'll select new frame, and I'll take this frame and move it out. I'm going to do the same thing on this one. I'm going to press new frame. I'm going to drag it all the way to the right. Now if we go through each of our frames, you can see it gets smaller and then bigger. So if I play it, it's like jumping up and down. Let me stop it. So this might be fun if you want your background elements to be jumping up and down like that. Obviously, this would make more sense if, say, you were doing like some type of running animation. So like, let me make a new frame for this guy. I'll make him wave. How about let's do that. And I realize now, here's the problem. Let me undo the gradient. Let me fill the back with the... Hold on. Let me redo this. Sorry. Not very prepared today. What did I want to do? I'll show you the layer tool as well. So let me press new layer. Now it added a new layer, as you can see in the timeline, and the new layer can have whatever we want on it. I'll put the gradient on our new layer, so we'll make it orange to white. And then what I'll do is I'll move the layer below. There we go. That's what I wanted. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new frame. I'm going to make sure I have layer 1 selected because I want to be erasing our guy. I'm going to go to view and hit show onion skin. Is it not doing it? There we go. I'm going to hide the layer 2, and then it's going to show us what it looked like before, so we can make our new frame not be too different from our old frame. I'm going to make sure it's back to simple ink. So I believe this was the color. And then next one, I'll erase it again. And then looks a little bit weird. Let me add one more frame. And then now his hand can be all the way up on this frame, like this. Now he's like shaking his hand. It looks a little bit silly. Maybe this guy is actually one of those weird things that stand outside of car shops and wave in the wind. So let me make all of them. It'll just be our green alien guy. How about? Let me re-enable layer 2. So now we have a short little animation here with layers as well. So yeah. There are a lot of different features going on in a sprite. I didn't even touch all of them. Like I said, there's the polygon tool, so let me pick another color. Let me actually put it on a new layer. That I want the new layer to be behind. So I can pick let me make the color a little bit darker, and then you can even do a you can have fun with it. It's just a lot going on. And yeah, that's all I really had for this one. Hopefully, if you're interested in doing pixel art for your P3 game, or maybe even the P2 game that's coming up right now, hopefully this is a tool that you'll consider using. Just the free version of Sprite. Oh, and I didn't even show you, here, let me delete this before we go. You can export things. When you have multiple frames, you can export it as a GIF, or you can say, if you want to export it as let me go here and let me select PNG. That's what I wanted. I'm going to hit PNG. I'm going to hit OK. Squish.png is what we'll call it, because it's like a sphere that's swishing. You can export it as a PNG, and it'll make a sprite sheet like we had in Project 1. You can either export it all as separate files like that. I believe I can export it all as one sprite sheet. Let me remember how to do that. Exporting a sprite sheet. Oh, there's an export sprite sheet option, I guess. Let me go ahead and find that. If I look right now on my hard drive, it probably saved it all as separate images, which is fine. You can import all these separate images in to your Unity and use them. But what I did mean is export sprite sheet here, which will do something like this, and then you can use Unity's, sprite creator, and because there's transparency behind them, Unity will have an easy time selecting each sprite, and then you should be all set if you're using the animator. So yeah, that's all I had. Hopefully this is interesting to you, and you find it useful. If you guys have suggestions for different asset creation tools you might want me to talk about or go over, feel free to let me know, and I'm happy to make content about that. Have a good week, and good luck on the rest of Project 2.